Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. And now we are convening the Committee on Environment, Climate, and Legacy. Call it to order. Let the record show that today is Thursday, March 20th at usual 3:05. We have a full agenda today. We also have quorum. And we're going to call the first bill up to the testifying table. That's Senator Hauschild's bill, Senate File 2530. And, yep. So we also call testifier, Michael Lindgren and Michael Sturdy. If you can come up the table and just go by the sequence, the order that we have here. And just for those who are testifying, because we have full schedule today, we're gonna keep your testimony under 2 minutes. Senator Hauschild, anytime you're ready. And I hear that you have an A1 amendment. A8 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have an author's amendment to get the bill in the shape of that I'd like. Okay.
So Hauschild moved the A8 amendment to be amended on Senate File 2530. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, motion prevails. And just to let members know that on the bill as amended, we only reference or talk, we only limit to talk about Article 1 on this bill, because that's the environmental provision. There are other provision article in the bill that relate to tax and under other jurisdiction. So, Senator Hauschild, anytime you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. As we know, last year we had a bill before us that put into place a temporary framework for helium and gas in Minnesota. It was recently discovered in northern Minnesota, in my district, one of the highest concentrations of helium in the world. So once again, my region, in addition to taconite and timber and many of the minerals that we rely on each and every day, we have a new resource that has never been done in Minnesota before. So we surprisingly do not have any framework for gas extraction in Minnesota. So we got to work quickly last year and passed a bill that put into place a temporary framework for gas extraction and created the Gas Technical Advisory Committee, which got to work with recommendations on a more long-term temporary framework. In addition to that, it created an expedited rulemaking process for gas extraction that is currently ongoing and will be completed approximately May 2026. So that process is sort of ongoing, and it's important to note that that rulemaking process is playing out. Mr. Chair, this bill, we had heard from the GTAC, Gas Technical Advisory Committee, earlier in committee on their recommendations. And this bill largely follows that guideline from the GTAC recommendations that came down, with one change to the environmental assessment worksheet requirement for discovery drills transitioning to production. So, Mr. Chair, that's kind of one of the changes in this bill. But I do want to talk about sort of the importance of helium, because I think a lot of people think that helium is just something that is in party balloons, right? It's just a common resource that we all use at our birthday parties. But the truth is, Mr. Chair, that helium is a critical resource that's used in medical technology, chip manufacturing, rockets and space exploration, and a lot of future opportunities that we have. And it's a very limited resource worldwide. And so this discovery is a huge deal for Minnesota, and the opportunity for this to be something that we not only extract but possibly process and utilize right here in Minnesota is a huge opportunity for us. So, Mr. Chair, I know that we've had extensive review of the GTAC recommendations earlier in committee. I'm happy to pass it to the GTAC DNR contact and hear from testimony, and then go through the process and answer any questions or address any amendments that folks have.
Thank you. Just want to, for the record, that Sarah Wiesenberg is online before testify begin. Anytime you're ready.
Thanks, Mr. Chair and members. For the record, Mike Lodgren, Assistant Division Director for DNR Lands and Minerals. I'd just like to thank Senator Hauschild for putting forward this bill and taking into account the recommendations from the GTAC committee, and look forward to working with the author as the bill proceeds forward.
Next testifier, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. Michael Sturdy. I'm the General Manager of Operations for Pulsar Helium, and I'd like to thank Senator Hauschild for putting this bill together, and also I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to address the committee today. I'd also like to thank the state of Minnesota for considering legislation enabling helium exploration work to continue, so that one day in the future, companies such as Pulsar may have the necessary data and understanding of the helium resource in Minnesota to define a production project that would be assessed under the proposed gas permitting framework by the state of Minnesota. For those not familiar with Pulsar Helium, Pulsar is a publicly traded company engaged in the exploration of primary helium. By primary helium, this means Pulsar is looking for helium as the primary commercial driver for our helium projects. Most helium produced globally today is found as a serendipitous byproduct of hydrocarbon gas production. Pulsar's objective is to one day be the first helium producer that does not involve hydrocarbon extraction. And I believe that the state of Minnesota is the place where we can achieve that goal. As mentioned by Senator Hauschild, the concentration of helium at Topaz Project in Lake County, Minnesota is approximately 10.5%. This is among the highest ever helium percentages measured globally and has the potential to be a world-class resource. And again, as Senator Hauschild mentioned, when you think of helium, people are always thinking about party balloons. However, that's only 2 to 3% of all helium goes into party balloons. So what it's really used for, it's a critical resource in our modern high-tech society and has no known substitutes for the technologies that require helium. This includes in the healthcare sector, MRI machines. That's 35% of all helium goes to MRI machines. Every MRI machine across the planet requires helium. Second largest user is the space industry. Every rocket that launches into space requires a significant amount of helium to safely lift off. Other industries requiring helium, chip manufacturers, which is done in the state of Minnesota, fiber optics manufacturing, supercomputing, and many others. And I look forward to continue working with the legislature, the Department of Natural Resources, Department of Health, and the people of Minnesota to advance a regulatory framework that allows for Pulsar to bring the first ever primary helium gas production project online and do it here in the state of Minnesota. So I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you very much. And Sir Hauschild, do you have an upcoming testifier as well, right?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair. I believe there are 3 other testifiers.
Okay, so I'd like to call Mr. Kramer and Ms. McAbee. And Mr. Klims, once the chair is available, feel free to come up. Please proceed with your testimony and state your name for the record.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Liz Kramer. I am a principal at SEH, a Minnesota company headquartered here in the Twin Cities Metro. We are a 100% employee-owned firm of engineers, architects, planners, and scientists. My background in Minnesota is with SEH along the last 27 years, working as a field scientist with expertise in wetlands, sensitive species, and habitats. I'm certified nationally as a senior professional wetland scientist, and here in Minnesota, I'm certified as a Minnesota wetland professional. My work with Pulsar Helium goes back to 2022 when they first met with me and my colleagues at SEH. They asked for our expertise as to what they needed to do to explore here, and we advised them on the kind of site planning and types of regulations applicable, depending on their approach and their location of their exploration program in Minnesota. As is common in industry exploration practice in Minnesota and how we work with our clients citing any infrastructure project, we worked with Pulsar to consider ways that they could minimize the impacts of their program to the greatest extent possible. As a result of this pre-planning, Pulsar has been able to do their exploration work with minimal impacts and have minimized their footprint of their exploration area to about 1 acre. This pre-planning effort resulted in timely and productive reviews with the regulatory agencies that have authority during this phase of exploration. For example, during the planning stages for their work for exploration, we identified a site layout that avoided sensitive resources. This includes how they access their area of interest and how they would put their equipment in place, and ultimately how their 1 acre site was permitted in an efficient manner. They satisfied multiple regulatory requirements to do this work. In particular, working with our state agencies like the Minnesota Department of Health for an explorer's license and to identify their responsible person to oversee their exploration program. They also worked with the Minnesota Department of Health for exploratory boring notifications to comply with that agency's requirements. Furthermore, they worked with understanding where sensitive resources are, where they could achieve a no-loss determination under the Minnesota Wetland Conservation Act. That means utilizing their space to not impact any wetlands or aquatic resources. They also received federal permits from the Corps of Engineers under the Clean Water Act with water quality certification from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Furthermore, they worked on construction stormwater permits, getting additional permits from the PCA, and working with Lake County for
Ms.
additional
Kramer, if you can
permits.
conclude.
You bet.
Yeah.
With this pre-planning work, Pulsar has minimized their impacts to the environment and achieved regulatory compliance during this exploratory phase, all of which was permitted with our existing regulations locally and in the state and federally. I'm here to help answer any questions you might have about this phase of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. And to Ms. McAbee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to testify today regarding Senate File 2530. My name is Paula McAbee, and I'm the Executive Director and Counsel for Water Legacy. Water Legacy is a nonprofit dedicated to protecting Minnesota waters, communities, environmental health, and regulatory integrity. Water Legacy opposes the current version of SF 2530 as inadequate to protect Minnesota's environment or financial interests. We believe the bill should be substantially amended. First, we are opposed to any temporary regulatory framework for gas development projects before rulemaking. My dad was a doctor, and he used to say, diagnosis first, treatment later. The 2024 moratorium on oil and gas production should remain in place, and permits should not be issued until rulemaking is completed. Rulemaking will allow assessment of gas resources and a thoughtful approach to development of a new industry. We specifically ask this committee, please restrict the scope of this bill to non-hydrocarbon gas, such as the helium that was discovered by Pulsar in 2024. Hydrocarbon gas and oil are energy resources. They require pipelines and involve agencies that haven't even been part of the GTEC process. Second, in addition to the bill's policy framework that regulates borings, please protect Minnesota groundwater by prohibiting fracking in gas wells and prohibiting the use of a gas well to inject or dispose of any liquid, gas, or chemical. Finally, in the policy framework that is going to guide rulemaking, please recognize that gas development has risks, including toxic and radioactive exposure, explosions, and release of methane. Please strengthen the bill's policy to require that gas resource development as well as reclamation protect natural resources, protect public and worker health and safety, avoid sensitive areas, and use best available technology to minimize safety, climate, and environmental risks. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. McAbee. And if I can call Mr. Klim to come up. Welcome, and state your name for the record.
Thank you, Chair. Her members of the committee. My name is Aaron Clems. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, or MCEA. We're a public interest law firm and advocacy organization with over 50 years of experience defending Minnesota's environment and the health of its people. As MCEA has been actively participating at every stage of the GTAC process and has supported the overall goal of SF 2530 to establish a framework for evaluating and making permitting decisions on gas development proposals in Minnesota, I'll cut right to the chase. It's disappointing and frankly a bit frustrating to say that we cannot support the bill as currently written and recommend that you avail yourself of each available opportunity for its improvement. First, since MCA has been following this closely, I can say quite confidently that the comments filed by tribal governments and conservation groups have not been incorporated into SF 2530. There are a number of specific suggestions about environmental review, permit term, control of hazardous materials, revenue sharing with tribal governments that have not been incorporated here. We understand that not all comments that are filed on a report will be incorporated, but when little or none of them are, and it gives the impression that this is not a genuine public comment period, and perhaps worse, not a legitimate consultation with tribal governments. Second, throughout this process, DNR and others have assured MCEA and others that this is not about oil and gas development for hydrocarbon purposes, but instead strictly about helium and hydrogen. I was personally persuaded that the references to oil and hydrocarbon gas development were simply a residue of history and not of significant concern here. But with this draft of SF 2530, it appears that might not be the case. SF 2530 would not only allow oil drilling and exploration upon completing an environmental review, it would require a rulemaking to examine hydraulic fracturing or fracking. If SF 2530 is adopted, it would end a moratorium on oil and gas development currently in statute. Lastly, I'd like to repeat my earlier testimony on the GTAC report that temporary permits should not be permanent. This is another major shortcoming of this legislation and the process that it would establish. Under SF 2530, not only is there no fixed time period for permits, but any temporary permits issued before rulemaking is completed will remain valid forever unless the permittee applies for an amendment. This provides all the wrong incentives, and it means that any standards that might be developed through rulemaking will never apply to a temporary permittee. It would encourage a rush to apply for temporary permits and would discourage a permittee from applying for a needed amendment. In summary, SF 2530 is flawed, and we recommend that you reject it if it remains as is. As we stated, the overall premise of the bill is good, and MCA has been supportive of this process throughout. So it's really disappointing to be compelled to make this recommendation today, and we would be very happy to work with you, Senator Hauschild, to make improvements to the bill. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Clem. Before I go back to Senator Hauschild, anybody in the audience that want to come up and testify, mainly people, citizen. Okay. Now to the bill, Senator Hauschild and other members, any questions? Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have one question for the DNR, but while they're coming back up, if I could ask Senator Hauschild, there was references just made that tribal entities would not be contacted, but I read in the bill that they are. Can you confirm that whenever any drilling would be done, they would either on tribal property or next to it, they would have to not only be contacted, but they would have to agree to be part of the process. I'm pretty sure I read that. Can you confirm that?
Mr. Ledger Green or Senator Hauschild?
Mr. Chair and Senator Green, I may let the DNR answer part of that question just to be sure, but I do know that in the pooling agreements in particular, that tribal interests do have the ability to veto those pooling interests if they see fit, and that there would be consultation. But I think it would be better to hear directly from the DNR on that process specifically.
Okay, Mr. Littergreen.
Mr. Chair and members, Senator Green, yes, and also within the amendment, I believe, had it as well with 935179, working with tribal governments and respect for human burial grounds is in the current amendment.
Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that answer, because I was sure I read it, but I've got so many tabs on the thing that, and then I got the whole bill marked up instead of just the first part, so you're going to get off easy today. But just one question. When I was looking through the proposal, it had made the statements on the cost was going to be $50,000 for the application fee, and then another $75,000 for the permit. But now it's broken down into smaller areas is like a $10,000 permit, and I'm assuming that would be per agency. So are those first numbers still right?
Mr. Hauschild and Mr. Litchgreen.
Mr. Chair, Senator Green, no, we reduced those fees.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion from members? Senator McCune.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the discussion on and presentation of this bill. I have a couple of amendments that I would like to raise. I have in general, and I can save my comments for the end about the bill and kind of where I'm at with it, but maybe just take the amendments first. Does that sound all right?
Agree. Sounds good.
I first have the A6 amendment. I would like to
The
offer it.
A6 amendment is coming. And Sarah McHugh, can you talk a little bit about the A6 amendment?
Yes, indeed, Mr. Chair. The A6 amendment addresses the issue of fracking in the bill. So this amendment, the A6, would prohibit fracking in gas wells, and it removes language requiring the agency to consider authorizing fracking in its rulemaking process. The amendment is really in response to some of the concerns that we've heard from the environmental advocates and the testimony, and that I also share, I'm also a little curious, like, what the origin of this is, but if Minnesota were ever to go down the road of considering adopting the practice of fracking, that would be a whole different discussion than I think what a lot of us had thought was happening with this bill. So I would like to remove the references to fracking and any notion that this bill would authorize permitting that had to do with fracking. So that is the bill, or the amendment.
To the author, Senator Hauschild.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Senator McEwen. I certainly don't want fracking in terms of oil development in Minnesota. However, I might ask the DNR to comment on the inclusion of fracking, because I don't want to do something that might be misunderstood, or maybe it's I just want to make sure that I understand what specifically the fracking is referring to and what industry and what it means, because it might mean something different than we think. And before I would comment on the specific amendment, I just want to know that.
Okay, Mr. Litchgreen.
Mr. Chair and members, Senator, I will actually defer to my colleagues at the Health Department on that, because it is underneath their article here in Subdivision 5.
Okay. Staff from Health Department, expert, do come over to the testimony table. And please introduce yourself.
My name is Teresa Purrington, and I'm the manager for the well management section at Minnesota Department of Health.
Go ahead. Do you?
She's just reading the section,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just to be sure.
So what this language is saying right now is that it's prohibited in the state, and that we would just consider it through the rulemaking process when we are going through the gas rulemaking.
Okay. Sarah McHugh.
Thank you for that. And yeah, I guess I'm just not okay with that. Is that what my understanding of what the bill to sort of address and create a framework whereby this helium deposit can be explored and developed. I do have concerns about us opening the door to things that maybe I certainly don't intend to want to open the door to, and that I think a lot of other people don't either. So maybe that's inadvertent. Maybe this was just sort of extra language that was put in there. I don't know. But I would ask for people's support on the amendment, and I don't know how you feel about that, Senator. But
Senator Hauschild to the amendment.
Mr. Chair, would you mind if I brought up the testifier from Pulsar to comment on this?
Sure. Do come forward, and please make room from. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michael Sturdy, General Manager of Operations with Pulsar Helium. And so as far as the fracking goes, we didn't really have any input in that in the bill. That was really from the Department of Health. We really didn't discuss that with them.
Okay, Senator McCune, it appears that Senator Weisenberg had his hand up online, I believe. Senator Weisenberg, to this amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess I have a question about the fracking and not using gas. Recently, Tim Walls, he sits on the Board of Investments, which we have like $46 million in stock in Tesla in Minnesota, which our Social Security is going into. And now he's saying we should devalue that and no longer buy electric. So if we can't use gas or electric, or what are we going to do, ride horses or start walking? I think this is something we're going to have to talk about, or maybe we can ask Walls to rescind his statements. But yeah, I think at this time, you know, we're not ready to go full electric, and we do need to have gas as an option. And I don't know if we're using gas anywhere, but these are things we need to think about. Thank you.
Senator Hauschild, to the amendment.
Mr. Chair, I think we're going to be working through this process. I think, in my opinion, I would like a little bit more time to find out kind of why this is in here. I know that the agency came forward and said it's just about the rulemaking process, but I want to find out what industries specifically would utilize this, if any at all. So I'm not sure if I'm ready to accept it as a friendly amendment at this time, but I'm certainly open to the concept of removing it. I just want to talk to more industry and find out more.
Senator McHugh.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Senator Hauschild. I'm a little bit, I guess these two amendments that I'm bringing today are sort of the conditions upon which I'd feel comfortable having the bill go forward and be discussed in other committee, even without recommendation, just to continue on the work. And without the adoption of these right now, I can't support it moving forward. So I'm happy to, I mean, I can make the motion for a vote. I don't mean to go against what you're trying to do with your bill. And if it turns out that there's an excellent reason for having this language included, I will be all ears and excited, anticipate hearing about that. And when it comes back around, maybe we could look at that over again. But I would like to have us consider the adoption of the A6 respectfully. Thank you.
Okay, well, all in favor of the A6 amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
No.
Roll call.
Division?
Division is called. Okay, all in favor signify by raising your hand. Okay. All opposed, raise your hand. Okay. Motion prevailed, the amendment is adopted with 5 yes and 2 no. Okay.
Thank you very much.
To the next
members.
amendment.
I appreciate that. Next, I have, no, I'm all right. Thank you. No, I'm going to have to, thank you. I have the A7 amendment.
And as this A7 amendment come around, Senator McCune, can you explain the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The A7 amendment addresses sort of likewise concern that has been brought forward by environmental advocates and groups. We had the testimony, and we also have some letters in our packets from a coalition of environmental groups expressing concern about language having to do with the construction of oil wells. So the A7 amendment would prohibit the construction of oil wells. That is really the purpose of that amendment, to just delete the reference to that and make sure that this does not overreach in a way that is not intended, similarly to the last amendment.
Senator Hauschild?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would accept that.
All right, so all in favor of the A7 amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion
No.
prevail. Okay, Senator, any other amendments or further discussion?
I have some further comments, but I can just wait unless there's no further business.
No further business, so Senator McCune?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you very much for this discussion on this bill. I share the sort of approach that I think the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy is taking with the bill. I would like to see this framework set up in a good way, and am very interested in that. And I just want to make sure that the concerns that all of the stakeholders in this have are really fully addressed before I could feel like I would support it. I am particularly concerned about the temporary permit being essentially made into a permanent permit without the actual rulemaking that we want this industry to engage in, to have our trust here in the state of Minnesota, of the people and of the workforce and the communities where they're operating. So that is a really big concern to me. I know that that might be a pretty big hang-up. So I'll be following that to see if maybe there's any sort of compromise in that regard to see if that could receive the vetting that would make us all comfortable in the community that this is being done in the right way. So at this time, I will, after all of the discussion is had, I would like to move that Senate file. Let's see. I want to make sure I get my number right. 2530. As amended, be recommended to advance to the next committee where it needs to be heard, but without recommendation. That will be my motion when we're ready.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, Senator Hauschild, closing remark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, for the discussion today. It was a little bit shorter than I anticipated, but I think we are going to go through a pretty extensive process. I believe this bill has to go through 5 committees, so I think there's some opportunity to do that and have more conversations about what some of the members mentioned here today. And we are still having dialogue with many of the stakeholders involved on all sides, so I look forward to that opportunity. I will just say this is something that Northern Minnesota is really excited about, and I think Minnesotans in general should be really excited about. As the testifiers mentioned, this resource is used in some of the most critical things that we rely on to live the lives that we live, from MRI technology to chip manufacturing and many of the things we use in our daily lives. So I hope that we can get to a place where we move forward with some of these frameworks as well as the revenue sources for this resource so that our communities can benefit. And I just appreciate the time, Mr. Chair, and I look forward to moving through the process.
Thank you, Senator Hauschild. And according to Rule 12.1, just want to note that Senator Lane has been with us since the get-go of this committee. I missed mentioning him earlier. So Senator McCune moved that Senate File 2530 as amended be referred to Judiciary and Public Safety without recommendation. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. Okay, the next bill is Senate File 1481, Senator Pappas. Is she in here at the moment? Okay, she's not here yet. I see Senator Weber. Senator Weber, do come forward. Senator Weber's bill, Senate File 2442, outdoor use of rainwater and stormwater provision. I'd like to call testifiers Mr. Tim Maloli and Jeff Letterell to the testimony table. Yes. And there's 2 more, so after you finish the testimony, if you can make room for the other 2 to come forward as well. So Weber, welcome. Welcome to my committee, and anytime you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the hearing today for Senate File 2442. This is a very simple bill. The bill allows us to do what common sense dictates us to do, and that is to use rain and storm water for irrigation purposes instead of our potable water. According to the Minnesota Stormwater Manual, nearly 50% of potable water supply is used for outdoor non-potable uses in Minnesota during the summer months. According to the Met Council, property owners in the Twin Cities will use 45 to 120 gallons of drinking water per person per day for outdoor uses during periods of hot weather. And large lots and new turf can use as much as 200 gallons per person per day of drinking water. And in 2023, the DNR estimated that close to 200 billion gallons of water were used specifically for irrigation purposes. So the question then is, why not use water that is storm water and rainwater for purposes of irrigation? And Senate File 2442 does exactly that by allowing state agency or political subdivision of the state, joint powers organization, or special purpose unit of government with authority to establish water quality standards and allow untreated rainwater or stormwater for outdoor purposes where the probability of consumption or immersion by humans or animals is low to non-existent. It does not allow this as a source of drinking water for swimming or immersion, and does not allow for agricultural activities that produce food crops for humans or livestock. The bill is fairly short and simple in that respect, and Mr. Chair, I would turn the table over to my testifiers.
Okay, Mr. Maloney, go ahead with the testimony, but do introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And members of the committee, my name is Tim Maluli. I ask you today to support passage of Senate File 2442. This is a common sense piece of legislation that addresses responsible environmental action, responsible use of precious resources, and business interests in the development and maintenance of our developed communities. I am president of 3 Twin Cities-based outdoor water-related companies employing approximately 50 people who install and maintain landscape irrigation systems, manage ponds and other aquatic environments, and who consult and design projects for bidding and construction, especially harvest systems. My companies are members of the Minnesota Nursery and Landscape Association, a 1,400-member small and family-owned business organization representing about 15,000 to 20,000 employees in Minnesota. And MNLA is the source behind Senate File 2442. I'm a volunteer servant leader serving on the MNLA Government Affairs Committee and its Committee on Water Resources. I was president of the association during COVID, and I'm a former board member of the Irrigation Association out of Fairfax, Virginia. I also chair the International Code Council 802 Sprinkler Standard Setting Committee, and in 2008 was awarded the first ever EPA WaterSense Partner of the Year, recognized for dedication to the efficient use of water resources. I served as a voting member of the Minimal Impact Design Standards Work Group, known as MIDS, authorized by the Minnesota Legislature through the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to develop and publish the Minnesota Stormwater Manual, a low-impact development planning guide that was so forward-thinking as to become highly regarded among business interests and government agencies across the United States. In fact, landscape irrigation is in the guide as a stormwater management best practice. Low-impact development is a stormwater management approach that mimics nature's hydrologic cycle. Low-impact development emphasizes conservation and the use of on-site natural features to protect water quality. Low-impact development systems and practices allow for processing rainwater and stormwater on the land where it falls. Since the codification of low-impact development in Minnesota and the publication of the Minnesota Stormwater Guide, there has been a virtual explosion of landscape irrigation as a rainwater or stormwater best practice, as it can serve 2 purposes: effectively processing large volumes of stormwater on site, and as a horticultural tool to help maintain a healthy landscape, reducing stress on potable water sources. Some of the stormwater projects that I've designed as a consultant at Water in Motion or built or serviced through my service companies include the first ever US GBC LEED Platinum residential home in Minnetonka, Minneapolis Park District Waterworks Park on the Mississippi, Minnesota Twins Ballpark, Minnesota United Soccer Club, the Spirit of Branch and Farm community in Lakeville, Minnesota, whose master association irrigation system is among the largest stormwater irrigation systems in the state. Senate File 2442 is a common-sense piece of legislation that intends to create a clearing for Minnesota communities to confidently advance the efficient use of water resources in the landscape, reduce dependence on potable water supplies, and help support developers and our state agencies achieve the goals of low-impact development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next testifier, state your name for the record.
My name is Jeff Latteral. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I work for a company called HLS Outdoor. My current role is territory manager for Minnesota. We are a green industry distributor in the state, specializing in irrigation equipment sales and support. This includes work with lake and stormwater irrigation systems. My company, HLS Outdoor, is a member of the Minnesota Nursery and Landscape Association, the source organization behind Senate File 2442. I am a volunteer for the MNLA, serving as a board member and a member on its Committee on Water Resources. My testimony today is in favor of passage of the Senate File 2442. Again, this is a common sense piece of legislation and addresses responsible environmental action and the responsible use of our precious water resources. My professional involvement in the landscape irrigation and landscape industry started in 1982. I have been involved with irrigation service, irrigation construction, design, consulting, auditing, and distribution of irrigation equipment for my 42-year career. I'm a certified irrigation designer, a certified irrigation landscape auditor with the Irrigation Association. I also have a power limited technician's license known as the PLT with the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. 3 examples of irrigation projects I've been involved with are the Minneapolis Sculpture Gardens. This has a stormwater reuse component built in 1988. I was involved with the installation of the original irrigation system. Many years later, was the consultant on the new stormwater reuse system. This irrigation system has been in use for 35 plus years. Another project, the Lakes Community in Blaine. This uses 6 different pumping stations, all for landscape and turf irrigation. It is 1,080 acres with public beaches, playgrounds, parks, water features, hiking trails, and has 4,700 plus residents. The third project I worked on is the St. Paul Fire Station, which has a 9,000 square foot green roof. It includes a stormwater capture system in a cistern underneath the parking lot for irrigation use of their green roof. They host public events and educational tours, and this green roof is an example in the Minnesota Stormwater Manual. In summary, this legislation addresses the responsible use of rainwater or stormwater instead of municipal water to keep our landscapes healthy. It decreases stormwater runoff. It increases groundwater recharge in the replenishment of the groundwater table. It is a common sense approach to get irrigation water going back into the ground. This legislation promotes the savings of billions of gallons of municipal water and reducing the urgency
if you can conclude your testimony
of communities to spend millions of dollars to expend their water infrastructure. If there are any concerns from local government groups, we are willing to sit down to discuss. Thank you for your consideration, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. I'd like to call also Mr. Napras and MPCA, Assistant Commissioner, to come forward.
Hi. Sorry.
Mr. Napras, anytime you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Randy Neprash. I am a semi-retired civil engineer, and I am a staff person for the Minnesota Cities Stormwater Coalition, MCSC, which is an organization of about 130 cities in the state that have MS4 stormwater permits. MCSC opposes this bill as it's written today. because it endangers public health, in our view, and it preempts local water quality prerogatives. MCSC has been working on stormwater reuse for more than 10 years now, mostly through a process that has been ably led by the Minnesota Department of Health. Some things that we know now. Stormwater in constructed ponds is polluted with both microbes and chemicals. Some treatment of this water is needed if it is to be safely reused. We have multiple pathways of exposure that are of concern for the public, including inhalation and ingestion that are not addressed in the bill. And finally, regulated cities and design engineers need well-informed and sophisticated guidance on how to reuse stormwater. This bill states that all units of, quote, government established water quality, with authority to establish water quality standards must allow untreated rainwater or stormwater for outdoor purposes, unquote. It removes the local authority to protect our residents from pollutants we know to be present in stormwater. It removes local authority to require treatment of reused stormwater when we know that some treatment is going to be needed. This bill addresses exposure pathways related to drinking, swimming, and agriculture, but not the pathways of inhalation and ingestion. And finally, we're also concerned that there are no limits on the quantity of water that can be withdrawn, which could jeopardize stormwater pond function. For all these reasons, MCSC strongly, even urgently, opposes this bill as it's written today because it endangers public health and short-circuits an important process led by MDH. Finally, we also agree and support the letter of opposition that was submitted and is part of the packet from Freshwater. Thank you.
Thank you much. Ms. Vanderbush, Assistant Commissioner, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dana Vanderbosch, and I'm one of the Assistant Commissioners at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to comment on Senate File 2442. As noted, this bill would require the MPCA and other governmental entities to allow the use of untreated stormwater for reuse when the probability of consumption or immersion by humans or animals is low to non-existent. The MPCA and the Department of Health both have concerns with this bill based on potential health and environmental impacts. Untreated stormwater can contain pollutants and toxins. It can contain pathogens and other bacteria that it picks up as it washes over roads and parking lots and public areas. Water reuse is an important way to reduce water use, and I want to thank Senator Weber and others for acknowledging that with this bill. Common reuse activities that we see are using stormwater to irrigate grass in public areas, vehicle washing, making concrete, and other industrial purposes. It is possible for people and pets to come into contact with reused stormwater without being fully immersed in it, which is really the only guardrail in the bill. For example, when walking through a public area that has been sprayed with or irrigated with reused stormwater. And also, as mentioned by Mr. Niprash, untreated stormwater can also have impacts if pollutants from the sprayed stormwater become airborne and then inhaled. The growing interest in stormwater capture and the use in Minnesota led to the formation of an interagency work group, and this group has been working on this issue for several years. We developed reports in 2018 and again in 2022, and the 2022 report does include Minnesota-specific data. The data really points to the need for broader discussion, gathering input from partners, and offering actionable recommendations for safe, sustainable reuse practices. As such, we believe that a change in statute is not necessary at this time as discussions and work continues on this subject. However, we're happy to work with Senator Weber and the committee and to provide technical assistance as we move forward. So thank you for the opportunity to comment on Senate File 2442. And we're here to stand for questions. I also want to point out that there are representatives of the Department of Health in the audience to help with any questions. Thank you.
Senator Ann Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Senator Weber. Thank you, testifiers. You'll notice my name is on this bill, and I too am a civil engineer. I want to just ask some questions and point out, just explain why I signed on to this bill. So first off, Mr. Neprash, is that how you say it? Neprash.
Thank you.
You know, I 100% agree. There are stormwater retention ponds all over the state that are filled with disgusting polluted runoff from our roads. This is a big problem, and I would love to work with you on, we need to craft some legislation on what homeowners should be doing or can be doing to clean out these ponds, which are filling up. I have one in my backyard, and that water certainly is not anything I would want to irrigate my grass with. But isn't it true that there are different types of collection devices for stormwater? One of the testifiers mentioned that the very first lead house was constructed with a very sophisticated stormwater collection methodology. I myself worked on a house at the university that we installed large bladders that collected the water, and the water that was collected was simply runoff from the roof and in the gutters, and that water, frankly, I would probably have drank. It was clean. And so my concern, and the reason I signed on to this bill, is to label stormwater with a broad stroke is problematic in that it continues to delay the use of stormwater for really safe purposes. So I'm comfortable with this language, and maybe I'm misunderstanding it. It says that agencies and political subdivisions must allow using untreated rainwater or stormwater for outdoor purposes. It doesn't say they must always allow. It says it must allow it when the probability of consumption or immersion by humans or animals is low or non-existent. My challenge, I guess I didn't, you nodded, so maybe I'd say a question. Mr. Neprash, isn't it true that there's different collection methods for stormwater?
Mr. Neprash.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's certainly true. Stormwater is invariably more complicated than anybody expects it to be.
Absolutely. And some of you may have noticed that, about 20 years ago, suddenly alongside our new highway projects, we had all these ponds that were being built. That was part of regulatory requirements that engineers and contractors that build highway projects, we had to collect all the water and allow it to settle before it ran off. And so a sedimentation basin can fill up over time with exactly that, sediment. But back to the bill, the reason I signed on is I'm frustrated. I mean, it's so hard to keep track of names here. Ms. Vanden Bosch, I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate, I'm good friends with the people over at Freshwater. It's super great, but we've been studying this for 7 years now, and there are some there's some very common sense time to allow for the reuse of stormwater. And so I know we're gonna lay this bill over. I welcome input. I would love to sit down and talk. As somebody who has a very deep understanding of stormwater and sedimentation ponds. But Senator Weber, I applaud your initiative to get this moving, because I really think at a time when water is becoming more valuable than oil, and it's becoming scarce, we need to open up the use of stormwater for other purposes. And there's a lot of work that's happening here in reusing what we call gray water, water for washing. Certainly stormwater, in some instances, it makes a very much sense to reuse it. And so that's why I signed on to this bill. I understand that our sedimentation ponds that are, alongside our interstates and other highways, I don't want that water to be used for irrigation, but I also don't want to preclude using water that is entirely appropriate for irrigation, even for washing and other purposes. So I just wanted to say that I would encourage us to look at the bill, and I'd be happy to offer some amendments that make it more palatable. But certainly, I really want to encourage the Department of Health to chop on this. Like, we could use, it's been 7 years, and I think we need to move forward on allowing for the use of stormwater for other purposes, because some of it is quite clean and appropriately reused. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting me have my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Ann Johnson Stewart. We have Senator Wiesenberg online.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to, echo, I guess, some of what Senator Johnson Stewart just said is, we've had studies going on for a while. There's water we can use, and that's okay. There's no reason we can't use it. I don't know if people don't know that we're literally spreading sewage from septic tanks on cornfields. I mean, we're pumping it out, and that's where we put it. So that's dirtier than the stuff that's in a pond. And you're saying we have to clean it so we can spread it on a cornfield or a lawn. Obviously, if there's an oil spill or something in a retention pond, we don't want anyone getting in there. But a lot of these ponds, they're clean water ponds. They're okay. We're not telling kids they can't swim in lakes, and that's where the rainwater's coming and going into. So I think we can do this in a way that'll work. If there's a pond that's been sitting around for months in the summertime and it's getting low and dirty, okay, that's fine. But we can use stormwater, and I think it'll be okay. And I think I agree with what's going on. Let's move forward and try to do this. And if we have to make some amendments or something, but I think we're ready. Thank you.
Senator Ann Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I was just taking some notes about possible amendments, I was thinking of Petticoat Junction. Remember that show? And all those women were in that big cistern, and I thought, cisterns are kind of becoming a thing again. So my question is for Ms. Vanden Bosch. Does this mean that if somebody has a cistern we may have a rain barrel at our house. I'm not talking about that size of rain barrel, but a water collection device similar to a rain barrel or a cistern that we're not able to use it for grown irrigation. What are the rules around that, Mr. Chair?
Assistant Commissioner.
Mr. Chair and committee members, right now, stormwater is allowed to be reused. The MPCA stormwater program and the stormwater permits that we issue are to municipalities that are large enough to need what's called an MS4 permit, and stormwater reuse is allowed. So we don't have any regulations, or I don't even know that we have a position on the use of rainwater by individuals, but communities that have stormwater programs can reuse stormwater right now. We do have best management practices when we know that a community wants to use them. We have best management practices about where to site those, activities, proximity to people, to pets. So we have that guidance and recommendations. And so there is no prohibition at this time. And so I think what's on the table, though, is that the Department of Health has raised, the human health issues with some of the data that's come forward, and they're asking, is, best management practices enough? And so that's what the interagency working group and the broader stakeholder group that we've been meeting with for the last year, that's what we're talking about, is whether we need other policy, other guidance, or are the best management practices that we have now, are they enough? So I think that's where we are right now.
Any follow-ups?
No, thank you. That's important. And again, I'd love to sit and talk with you about this issue as well as the working group. And for anybody who didn't know what I was saying, it's Petticoat Junction. You can Google it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Ann Johnson Stewart, glad you brought that show up. I saw that show, but it was back home in my home country of Laos, and it was dubbed in Thai. So it showed how much American influence was. There's so many other shows as well, but I'll leave it to a different time. But if amendment is needed, as we lay over, don't hesitate to talk to Senator Ann Johnson and Senator Weber. So Senator Weber, closing remark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And certainly you and Senator Johnson Stewart are dating yourselves here today with a Petticoat Junction reference. But in any event, what I would like to say is that I think it is important. One of the reasons that I brought forward this bill is because we see on a small scale, we see communities that have rainwater gardens that collect the water off their homes and utilize that. But as the MPCA indicated, they've been studying this for 7 years. The broader work group has been going since 2023, and we still don't see any results out of that. And sometimes I think it's up to us to kickstart some of these projects and some of these rules. And it also points to the need for some of the rulemaking overhaul as far as the state of Minnesota is concerned. And so that's the final comments, Mr. Chair, that I would leave with you and the members of the committee.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the testifiers. We'll lay over Senate File 2442 for possible inclusion in Environment Omnibus Bill. I see Senator Pappas is here. Senator Pappas, do come forward. And also want to call Amira Adawi and Ms. Cameron to testify table. We also have two more testimony. I suppose that the two first one here, after you're done, you can make seat for the two following. Senator Pappas, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nice to be back in the committee. Senate File 1481 briefly requires the Commissioner of the Pollution Control Agency to send a notice to retailers who sell skin lightening products, which states that selling skin lightening products that contain mercury is illegal and subject to penalties. And then it also requires the businesses to self-certify that they received the notice and will comply with the law. Just for a little background, skin lightening, whitening, and bleaching products are widely used and a common practice in many parts of the world. These products significantly affect both men and women in the USA and globally, posing both public health and environmental concerns. Skin lightening is the practice of using pharmacologically active ingredients for cosmetic purposes to whiten the skin, which includes the face, the hands, the legs, and any part of the body, including, for women, the breasts. Skin lightening products come in different forms. They can be creams, soaps, and in some cases, injections. They commonly contain harmful ingredients such as mercury, hydroquinone, steroid, and arsenic. When used without medical supervision or misused for cosmetic purposes, many of these ingredients have adverse health effects on the user. The global skin lightening products industry has an estimated market value of $9.2 billion in 2023 and is expected to reach $14 billion by 2032. The idea that darker is somehow less than lighter and the very real consequences of colorism have created the market for skin lightening products. They're sold around the world, including Minnesota, and they're widely available in ethnic stores, large retails, and online. And many of the samples that have been collected from these stores tested high levels of mercury. I want to just zero in on the mercury because exposure to mercury is especially concerning to women of reproductive age because it can cross the placenta and interfere with the neurological development of the fetus. It can also lead to discoloration, damaged skin, kidney damage, and birth defects, including neurological damage in early childhood as well as in adults. Toxic ingredients like mercury and hydroquinone are not always listed on the skin lightening product label, and many businesses and consumers are unaware of the damage associated with the use of these very dangerous skin lightening products. Thus, the purpose of the notice. I have with me Ms. Amira Andawi, who has founded an organization called Beautywell that she's going to talk about, and she's been really trying to educate ethnic communities about the dangers of these products. And I've had staff that's worked for me in the past from various ethnic cultures who have told me, oh yeah, my skin is dark and I get a lot of pressure from my family to use skin lightening products. So it is very common across a number of ethnic cultures. So the purpose of it's a small effort, but we think that we should, at the very minimum, educate retailers about the dangers of these products. Right now, it is illegal to sell products with mercury, but I think it's the policing of it that's very difficult, and so this is just a method to at least say, you know, these products are dangerous and you shouldn't be selling them.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. Do you have an A2 amendment, right?
Yes,
Senator
I do.
Pappas?
So, Mr. Chairman, when we left Commerce, we realized that we had not, let's see, there are two things the amendment does. We had not really clarified, first of all, that we want the notices to be sent out annually, and that is in here somewhere. And then the second part of it is the penalties, right? And we wanted to consult with MPCA about how they handle penalties internally, and so they gave us this language to fit into their penalty portion of the statutes. So I would appreciate if someone would offer it. And we basically, on line 4.17, we even specify the level of the violation
Okay.
for failing to certify. Find the certification form and send that back. There already is a penalty for selling the products.
Okay, we have an A2 amendment here. Senator Kunish, move that the A2 amendment to the Senate file 1481 be adopted. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. Okay, Senator Pappas, looks like you already explained it all already, so we just head over to the testifier. Welcome, and try to keep yourself in 2 minutes because we still have number of testifier and bills to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and member of the committee. My name is Amira Adawi. I'm the executive director of the Beautywell Project, which is a nonprofit organization that has been addressing skin lighting products and chemical exposures, as well as other beauty products that are disproportionately impacting many communities. As Senator Pappas mentioned, these products consist of creams, soaps, and sometimes injections that people use to intentionally change their skin color. People mix multiple products that contain mercury, hydroquinone, and steroid-based creams, and they use 2 to 3 times per day, and they use it at home. And a study that the Minnesota Department of Health Pollution Control Agency have done, doing home visiting, they have tested the homes, and many of these homes tested positive for mercury in the air. So what that tells us is that exposure is not only limited to those who are using, but those who live with them, but people who are visiting them as well. Over the years, the departments and also our organization and FDA have tested more than 500 products, which many of them contained high levels of mercury, up to 59,000 parts per million, which is much higher than the threshold that FDA allows, which is 1 parts per million. So we know that mercury is extremely toxic, and over the years, we have had cases of mercury poisoning in United States, including Minnesota. 2 years ago, there was a woman who lost her vision due to mercury exposure from the skin lighting products. Same with California, women who had neurological problems due to skin lighting containing mercury. Similarly, in Texas last year, June, Illinois. So we have many cases right now that are showing mercury poisoning related to these products. And the products are widely available in Minnesota, and there hasn't been a strong regulatory system. And so this bill will help actually to address both helping the retailers to understand what mercury is, because some of these retailers that we have been educating, they don't even know what mercury, hydroquinone, or lead is. And so this will help with some of these education, as well as getting into regulating and getting these products off of the shelf. And so I'm in support of this bill, and I hope that you will support, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Adawi. Next is Ms. Cameron. State your name for the record.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Anjali Cameron. I'm the CEO of SEVA AIFW. Minnesota's largest South Asian serving nonprofit organization. SEVA was founded in 2004 to serve the underserved and vulnerable immigrant and refugee populations. Our organization serves a diverse South Asian community, including Minnesotans with heritage from India, Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, and many other communities. SEVA serves the community through our senior programs, gender-based violence interventions, artistic healing, economic development, and most significantly, our community-free health clinics. One of the services that we provide at this clinic is vital support for heavy metal screenings within our community. I'm here to advocate today for the passage of SF 1481. This is not just a regulatory issue, it's a public health crisis that directly impacts vulnerable populations. The use of skin lightening products in the South Asian community and many other Asian and Pacific Islander communities is a complex issue. It's often driven by cultural beauty standards and societal pressures. However, these products, imported and often unregulated, contain dangerously high levels of mercury. Many Asian women who use these products are of childbearing age, and the potential to transfer mercury from mother to fetus can have lasting implications on our communities. Within the South Asian community, there's an intense pressure to conform to cultural beauty standards that are often equating lighter skin with success and attractiveness. This pressure is deeply rooted in historical and cultural biases. This drives the use of skin lightening creams and other products in our community, even when individuals are aware of the potential risks. Our clinic has seen firsthand the devastating effects of this pressure. We've conducted screenings that reveal alarming levels of heavy metals, even in young girls in our community. While education and awareness are important, they are insufficient to counter these deep-seated pressures. A more effective mechanism is to keep people safe through ensuring that these dangerous products are removed from store shelves in Minnesota, preventing exposure at the source. The current lack of clear and direct communication to retailers is a critical gap. This bill provides the necessary information to protect consumers. By mandating the MPCA to send direct notices, we can ensure that retailers are informed and held accountable. It's not simply about enforcement, this is about prevention. It's about protection of our children, our families, and our communities from irreversible harm. Communities need us to step up and provide protections. It's a simple requirement, a notice to retailers. It's cost-effective and a crucial step to safeguarding public health. By acting now, you're demonstrating your commitment to the well-being of these Minnesotans. I urge you to support this bill. It's not only an urgent public health matter, but environmental protection issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call Yusra Muhammad and Director Tom Johnson of MPCA. And anytime you're ready, please state your name for the record.
Hi there, good evening. My name is Yusra Mahmoud. I am a business advisor in South Minneapolis. Our city has numerous businesses selling skin lightening products, thank you, many serving immigrant communities where these products are culturally familiar. However, this creates a twofold problem that urgently needs addressing. First, consumers face significant health risks. Many skin lightening products contain dangerous chemicals, as you've heard, particularly mercury. And when applied to the skin, mercury is readily absorbed into the bloodstream and can cause kidney damage, neurological problems, rashes and skin discoloration, birth defects when used by pregnant women. Secondly, business owners themselves face occupational hazards. Many small businesses in Minneapolis not only sell these products, but prepare or mix them on site without proper protective equipment or ventilation. So this sometimes can create direct exposure with the mercury through handling, contamination of business premises that can persist for years, and legal liability when selling products that don't meet the FDA standards. Recent testing in Minneapolis actually found that over 40% of skin lightening products sampled contain mercury levels exceeding the FDA limits, sometimes by thousands. So this bill would provide much needed regulation while supporting education and safer alternatives. It would establish clear standards for product testing, create resources to help businesses transition to safer products, fund community education on chemical hazards, and provide technical assistance for proper handling and disposal. The economic burden of mercury poisoning, including healthcare costs, lost productivity, and environmental cleanup, far exceeds the cost of prevention. And by supporting this bill, we protect both consumers and the business owners who serve our diverse communities. Hopefully I kept this short and sweet, unlike the effects of skin lightening products.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. For the record, my name is Tom Johnson, Government Relations Director for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and I think the testifiers have done an excellent job covering the health impacts and the reason why we need to take additional action. So I will keep it brief and just say that the MPCA, this is not the governor's bill. However, we are very supportive of the effort to reduce mercury in skin lightening creams and other hazardous chemicals, and we really appreciate the work done so far with Senator Pappas and particularly Ms. Adawe from Beautywell, and we look forward to continuing to work on this legislation. The governor has also recognized this as a critical issue and has a provision in the recommendations for the MPCA, and so I think this is something we continue to work on together, and appreciate that this continues to be something that the committee can work on. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any question from members? Any discussion? Okay. Well, Senator Pappas, closing remark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the attention of the committee and giving us a hearing. And I think we're unsure about a fiscal note because of the annual notice. Might be a small one. So perhaps it should be laid over for consideration.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll lay over Senate File 1481 as amended for possible inclusion in the omnibus environmental bill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. Next will be my bill. I'd like to ask Senator Hauschild, would you chair while I present my bill?
For the record, for the committee, I just want it known that Senator McEwen has joined virtually. And with that, Chair Herr, I will call on you to go over Bill 1535.
Thank you, Chair Hauschild. Senate File 1535 provides one-time and ongoing funding for the local road wetland replacement program. Established over 30 years ago with the creation of the Wetland Conservation Act, the state agreed to do the mitigation of wetlands impacted by local road improvement projects. The program is a success. It streamlined wetland mitigation for local road projects, ensuring higher quality habitats, faster permitting, and lower the cost for local governments. However, the program has been chronically underfunded, receiving only a third of the necessary funds since 2017. So to address this, Bowser convened a working group. This bill reflects the recommendation for one-time funds to replenish wetland credits and base funding to sustain the program. I have two testifiers here with me. They will speak on how the program works and the importance of this funding. It's Kristen Foster and also Marcus Culver, and you could go first.
Thanks for joining us. Please state your name for the record and go ahead with your testimony.
Chair and members of the committee, for the record, my name is Kristen Foster from Otter Tail County, and today I'm here on behalf of the Association of Minnesota Counties, Minnesota County Engineers Association, and Minnesota Intercounty Association to speak in support of Senate File 1535. Minnesota counties have jurisdiction over more than 44,534 of the state's 143,112 miles of roads and highways, and local governments oversee approximately 80% of all bridges in our great state, according to MnDOT's annual bridge report. Since the late 1990s, counties rely on the streamlining provided through the local government road wetland replacement program as we prepare system investments.
I think it's important to share a reminder that new roads or highways expanded solely in anticipation of future traffic forecasts do not qualify for this program. What brings me here is thinking about the number of bridge and highway rehabilitation or replacement investments that are delivered efficiently thanks to the administration of this program by the Board of Water and Soil Resources team. As of last fall, 5 of the 10 bank service areas had a balance of less than 1 year of demand. Receiving both adequate and predictable funds through a combination of one-time monies and ongoing appropriations is important, considering the timeline to restore wetlands and receive related regulatory approvals is typically 7 to 10 years. In essence, Senate File 1535, if enacted, provides for projects that will be scheduled for reconstruction in the 2030s and beyond. Thank you for this time today.
Thank you. And Mr. Marcus Culver, please state your name for the record and title and go ahead with your testimony. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. My name is Mark Culver. I'm the city engineer for the city of Brooklyn Park. I am testifying today on behalf of the League of Minnesota Cities and the City Engineer Association of Minnesota on this wonderful bill. On behalf of these organizations, I'd like to voice our strong support of this bill to fund wetland replacements for necessary roadway projects across the state. I would like to thank the chair for authoring this bill, as well as Senator Johnson Stewart and Senator Lang for their co-authorship of this important bill. This bill fully funds and supports a wildly successful program that has provided for the restoration and creation of high-value wetlands across the state, while also providing for the mitigation requirements of countless public road maintenance projects since 1996. Without this program, cities as well as counties would be forced to fund public roads to find appropriate and high-quality mitigation opportunities on their own, or as Ms. Foster pointed out, to pay a high premium for private wetland bank credits. This program has been woefully underfunded, as the chair mentioned in his introduction, for far too many years, and the program administrators have had to rely on bonding funds as we all know too well, on an all too unpredictable time frame and amount. This bill not only provides a shot in the arm for the program with the $15 million in bonding dollars and $11.5 million in general fund dollars to meet upcoming unmet needs, but it also sets the stage for an operating budget of $9.5 million that can be relied on, hopefully, year after year, but at the very least for the next biennium, so that program administrators can work on mitigation sites into the future. Again, highlighting what Ms. Foster already said, this bill not only helps projects currently under development, it helps projects that will be constructed in the next decade and beyond. Again, we thank the authors of this bill for having the foresight to fully fund the need for this program in both bonding and operating dollars, and we ask this committee to fully support this bill. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Culver. Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for Ms. Foster. My understanding is, I guess just to summarize, that when a government agency builds a road or a project and they deplete or they impact a wetland, they need to purchase wetland credits as part of the project costs to mediate those impacts, correct? The cost to buy the wetland credits comes out of the project cost. That's my question.
Chair and Johnson Stewart, to answer that, it depends on the type of project. If we're talking about a bridge replacement of an existing bridge or rehabilitation of an existing road, those credits are mitigated through this program, which leaves more dollars for us to pave more miles of road or replace more culverts or do other things with the construction dollars that we have access to. For other projects, such as trails or roads on a new alignment or highways widened solely for expansion purposes, the cost of purchasing private credits varies greatly. Earlier in my career, just as one example, I worked on a trail project, and the cost of wetland credits from a private bank increased the cost of that project by 17%. Again, that's only one example in one part of the state, but if a project does not qualify for this program, or if this program was not available, that cost would be left to negotiations with private bank owners, which can be difficult.
As a follow-up, Mr. Chair, so you did answer my question and also made me aware that these credits are not always available for every type of project. I think that's what you were saying. And I can see Mr. Culver affirming that. So again, what I was trying to say was the cost of buying these credits, whether they come from a private bank or from Bowser's Bank, the cost is part of the project. Correct? So if we have more expensive credits, then it just increases the cost of the project.
Chair and Johnson Stewart and Senator Johnson Stewart, Senate File 1535 provides the funding for wetland mitigation for projects that qualify for this program. So as long as this program exists, it is not part of the cost for those projects.
Okay, now I am confused. So these credits aren't free, though. Doesn't the public agency has to purchase these credits? No, they're free?
Mr.
Explain
Chair,
how it works, Mr. Culver,
yeah,
please.
Just to clarify, if the project meets the requirements of this program, then the funding that is provided, that we're being asked for today, is paying for those credits. And so there is a bank that public agencies can draw against of wetland credits that have already been created. So to that point, it doesn't cost the agency any additional money to get those credits. However, if this program doesn't exist, then yes, there is significant cost for those public agencies to get those credits.
Actually, that's great. I'm so glad you answered that. So the challenge here, and my question again to Ms. Foster, what are the impacts to projects if the credits are depleted? That would be that then the agencies wanting to complete these projects has to spend additional money to get the credits, correct? Do you want to talk about that? And you're from Otter Tail County. Can you talk about the amount of credits that are available in the Northwest? I wish I had that map that showed where the credits are depleted, but my understanding is there's several, oh, it's in here? Is that in the, okay, so it's in the handouts, but there's several areas in Minnesota where we are near out of credits. Ms. Foster, could you answer that or just reflect on that?
Chair and Senator Johnson Stewart, when a bank service area is depleted, Bowser will use credits from other bank service areas at a ratio of, I don't remember exactly what that is. I think it's 2 to 1, or in any case, it's at a higher ratio. So those other bank service areas are being depleted faster for projects that occur if there aren't any credits available in a bank service area.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I did not sound very smart there, so I apologize. And maybe that's indicative of my general understanding. But the paper I was looking at, I didn't realize it was in our handout. But again, this is a pretty urgent need. And Senator Howe, thank you for, or Senator Herr, sorry. Thank you for carrying this. So I think I'll let that settle. I do have some questions for Bowser, but maybe some people have questions for the testifiers.
Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I can't support the bill. I mean, I know that the counties like this, and it does help the counties out. There's no question about that. But if you look at where a lot of these credits are bought, a lot of them are bought up in my area because they're cheaper. And so you mentioned 2 for 1 on acreage in some instances, and that's what happens. And so they're buying property in my area. And just to give you an example, Beltrami County, for instance, is right now only 17% taxable. And they have one of the very large burden on their health county services and those issues. The Clearwater County is another one. They're 37% now, I think, non-taxable land in that area. And that's the way it is up north. And so the land where they purchase the credits in most cases is where the land is least expensive. And so what happens is you'll get property that might be in Otter Tail County, might be in Stearns County, might be in the metro area. But they'll purchase their credits in our area and even through this. And so we'll lose 2 acres for every acre that is impacted. And the other issue that we should be dealing with is that if you're putting in a road and you impact that wetland, by law, that wetland has to be put back the way that it was when you left it. And so the impact is only, in most cases, for a very short time. And yet now we're spending 15 million out of the bonds proceeds and 11.5 million. And so, and I have no doubt the bill's going to pass. And but if for any reason there's not enough money to fund this, Chair there are some other alternatives that we could consider. And one of those would be that using the credits to actually enhance and restore our existing lands, which is, it's well needed. You know, there's many areas, and I've tried to get that bill through, and it would ease up on some of our property tax burdens, and at the same time, I think accomplish the goal of enhancing the lands that we have. But that's just a comment, so not a question.
Senator Hurd, did you have anything to? Okay. Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, and thank you, Senator Green. My understanding of this program is that this is actually, well, maybe if we could have Bowser answer some questions about that, the Bureau of Water and Soil Resources. The truth is that if we do not fund this program, government agencies that want to build roads, it's going to cost us a lot more. It's not like the county engineers, and Ms. Foster is Otter Tail County engineer. Maybe, I don't know if that's your district, but that's a big problem for them if they don't have the wetland credits. And if Bowser, I see Bowser is here. I know Senator Green wants to respond, but I have a question for Bowser once Senator Green has a chance to respond.
Okay. So we'll jump to Senator Green's comment, and then we'll thank you for coming, Bowser Representative. We'll have you state your name for the record.
And then we are
Go ahead,
running short on time, so I'll make this quick. And then if you want to talk offline, we can. You are correct. It would indeed increase the amount to anybody building a road. The issue would become then, why are we spending tax dollars to save tax dollars? These projects, the testifier said that in one case it would be 17%. But across the road, the regulations are across the, poor choice of words, I guess, poor pun. But across the area of this area, the regulations are over 25% increases in costs right now to any road project. So our counties and our townships, if they, just for ease in figuring, if they had $75,000 project to do, which would be small, by the time you get done with all the regulations that are on there, you're actually paying $100,000. And so there's areas that I think we have to fix. And just to take more tax dollars to supplement tax dollars isn't the answer. I appreciate the fact that the counties are here. I served in a township and I work with counties and I know the costs that they have. But we're not really curing the problem. We're not lowering the cost. We're just supplementing it somewhere else.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Senator Green. I'd love to work with you on that. But I think the reality is right now the counties do have to purchase these wetland credits, and if we can make them more affordable, that does save money. But I'd love to talk to you about how to fix some of those challenges that we have within our agency requirements. I see that the guy from Bowser is here. Sir, could you just first introduce yourself, but then explain how this program works? And I know we don't have very much time, but just quickly explain how this is a cost benefit for those of us that are funding roads.
Mr. Chair and Senator Johnson Stewart, my name is David Wyrens. I'm an assistant director with the Board of Water and Soil Resources. There really are, you asked the question of how the program works. There really are kind of two sides to it. The first side is if you're a county, city, or township and have a qualifying project, an existing road that you are upgrading to meet safety standards. That's the principal purpose of the program, is to make sure that the wetland regulation are not inhibiting local governments making our roads safer for the traveling public. That's a primary purpose of that. They do go through a process to avoid and minimize impacts to the greatest extent possible. Then they report the resulting necessary unavoidable impacts to the Board of Water and Soil Resources. We then work with the local government who oversees the Wetland Conservation Act, as well as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, to identify the most appropriate wetland credits that we control through funds we've received in the past to offset those wetland impacts. And it's important to acknowledge that this simplifies the process through the state regulations, but also through the federal, and that we work to coordinate this with the Army Corps of Engineers for Clean Water Act Section 404 approvals, so that there's also efficiencies gained there on the part of the local road authorities, and not having to navigate multiple regulatory processes. They bring it to Bowser, and we've done that on their behalf to try to make the system work kind of more efficiently for everybody. So those are some of the benefits there in terms of the work we've done over the past 20 plus years we've had this program. But on the other side, the money that we receive from the legislature to support the program, we can't get too far ahead of ourselves in identifying projects to restore, because our purpose with these dollars is to find a previously drained or filled wetland that we can restore back to its natural pre-impact condition. That's our goal with all of our impacts, is put back what nature had there before something happened to it in the meantime. So once we have dollars in hand, then we go out and do an RFP process. Typically, we reach out to private landowners. We work through local governments to help us identify projects. There are private wetland bankers who are interested in working with us as well. And we look for projects all across the state. But as you look at the map that you have on here, the places that you see red on the table, those are the places that we look first, because we want to have the lowest replacement required, and that's by having replacement wetlands in each of the bank service areas. You get the lowest replacement ratio. As mentioned earlier, where we don't have wetland credits, then we have to go to a nearby wetland bank service area, and we do pay a penalty. We pay at a higher rate than we otherwise would, so we exhaust our credits at a faster rate. So once we identify a project, we have to negotiate land rights so that we can actually control the restoration for not only the initial project, but for into perpetuity. Because remember, the wetlands that are impacted are gone forever, so the replacement wetlands need to be there forever as well, too. And then we kind of work through the regulatory processes to get the necessary approvals. And then it keeps going. It is a lengthy process. As you see, there's this timeline on here is very important, because then once we've gotten the approvals for our wetland bank project, we then have to go and do construction and do restoration so that it provides those wetland function values. And then we have to monitor it for, it's most typically a 5-year time period to demonstrate we're meeting what the bank plan that was approved. So it's performance conditions of what we say we're going to do, we have done, and demonstrate that through monitoring. And through that process, we then are allocated credits on an annual basis. So this is a very regulatory process, but it is a way to demonstrate that we are generating high-quality wetlands that provide those public benefits on into the future.
I have two quick follow-ups,
Yep.
and I know we're running out of time. Thank you. So to address the concern that Senator Green brought up, and I don't know this, are projects supposed to try to find wetland banking in their own region? And then you said they get penalized with a higher rate of, I'll just call it credit, if they go outside their region? Is that in fact how it works? I see Kristen nodding, so that's.
Senator Johnson Stewart, what I would say is that it's our job to match up the location of the project with the most economical credits.
Okay.
So that we minimize what we have to pay, if you will, through the banking system.
Okay, and then one follow-up. I think you told me that when farmers agree to this arrangement, you have an easement, or do you actually purchase the land from them? So this credit land, the land that's available, the wetlands that Bowser restores, does the farmer still own it, or do they own it and you have an easement on it? And in which case, does it still get property taxes on it?
All of the wetland banks that we have generated for this program have been done through easements where the land is still privately held.
So can somebody answer, do farmers still pay taxes on land that has an easement on it? Does anybody know? So they do. So it sounds like this does not take land off the tax rolls, but I don't know enough about that too. That's something I would like to know more about. Okay, I'm sorry, I've kind of commandeered the microphone. Thank you very much.
It's all right, interesting discussion. Senator Hurd, do you have any, or any other members? Otherwise, we'll go maybe to Senator Hurd.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing this bill. And the cost has to come from somewhere. And this program has been underfunded for a very long time, since 2017. And it's time that we replenish in some degree. I know we're in a short budget, but we'll do what we can. So thank you and ask for your support.
Thank you, Senator Hurd. And with that, Senator Ann Johnson Stewart, do you want to move the Senate File 1535 to be recommended and passed and re-referred to the Capital Investment Committee?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. And the motion passes and is re-referred to the Capital Investment Committee.
Thank you for your support, Senator.
Okay, we'll go to Senate File 956, Senator Green's bill. And I'd like to remind testifiers that we're limited to 2 minutes per testimony. So what I have on the list is Mr. Porter, if you're here. Senator Green, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for hearing this bill. And I have to apologize to my testifiers. They drove in from 6 hours away, so they got a long way home too. But there's been a lot of talk about this bill, that it's going to be damaging to certain agencies. But the fact about this bill is it simply deals with illegal search and seizures, or what I consider illegal search and seizures by our Constitution. The Fourth Amendment requires that certain procedures are in place before you can confiscate property or before you can enter property. And those are not being followed. My one testifier that's online couldn't wait any longer, so he won't be there. But if you would like, in the interest of time, I'll go to my one testifier, and then I'll just give you a short recap of what the other testifier would say, and then a little bit of background.
Welcome, Mr. Porter. State your name for the record and your title.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Steve Porter. I'm from Lake Brunson, Minnesota. I'm here as a board member for Hunters for Hunters. Last winter, we put on 20 town hall meetings. I've spoke to about 12,000 people at about 20 town hall meetings. And this is a big problem. I talked to all these people after our events, and the DNR has lost credibility with people in greater northern Minnesota. And so this bill isn't asking for anything new. It's asking to redirect a little bit and get people to follow the Fourth Amendment, the DNR to follow the Fourth Amendment, and to get the DNR to follow an order that was previously written by Commissioner William Burhelm in 2001, which ordered game wardens to stay out of fish houses unless they had consent or a search warrant. I was aware of this bill, this order that came out from Colonel Wilhelm, and I was in law enforcement for 30 years. I was on the ice fishing. Game warden came to the door, barged his way in. We're not asking for anything new with this bill. We're asking to follow the Fourth Amendment and this order that was issued. But in my case, the game warden barged in. It's just a sense of decency. There could be a woman going to the bathroom in a fish house, and the next thing you know, there's a warden standing in the room. I talked about how the DNR have a black eye in northern Minnesota. They've lost credibility. And if we had a kid that you knew who was not being liked by people, we would try to reel them in and have them follow the rules. I understand there's opposition to this bill. I don't know why. They're not asking for anything new. We're just asking that they would follow the Fourth Amendment and an order that was written by a previous game warden. There shouldn't be any opposition to this bill. The laws are there in place. This is just a gentle nudge to rebuild the faith and credibility of the DNR by getting them to obey the rules. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Porter. Do you want, Senator Green, do you want to sum up the other?
I do, and I won't read the whole thing, but in essence, he was going to testify that he and his son were hunting on their own private land, and the game warden, conservation officer came onto the property and said that they had been baiting deer, and they said that they had previously had corn there, but it had been removed the proper time before hunting season. And the officer, I guess, found 4 kernels of corn on the ground, and when he did that, he confiscated their rifles and fined them both $400 and took away their hunting privileges for a year. I have also, I did not type up or present all the testimony that was given me because we would have been here a long time. I've heard from 20 people that around that are in support of the bill. I do believe that the DNR wants to testify, and in the interest of time, I'm going to answer a couple of questions before they get up here. And if there's any questions after that, I'll do the best I can to answer those as well. There is a statement here from county sheriffs, or the Sheriff's Association, that states that they represent 87 elected sheriffs in Minnesota. And I did put, and I've talked to sheriffs, and some of them didn't even know that this bill was coming up. And then we did get one from Red Lake Falls, Minnesota. The sheriff said he's in full support of the bill. And I've heard from other sheriffs as well that say, you know, we have to follow these laws, and we think that the DNR should as well. And there again, we're not putting anything else on law enforcement. We're just saying that the DNR has to follow the same rules. And and then there's one from the conservation officers, and I did speak to them as well, and they do not agree with the bill, but yeah, we are limiting them because the law is put, our Constitution put in place for a reason, and that's to keep people safe. And I don't think any of us want somebody coming in, no matter who it is, and saying that we're going to search your home and confiscate your property. We're going to search your home without a warrant and confiscate your property without due process. And so that's the gist of the bill, Mr. Chair. And I don't know how much more other testimony from other people. I've seen only one on the list, but we'll address that and hopefully get out of here in decent time.
Okay, I'd like to call Colonel Smith over to the testifying table. Welcome, Colonel Smith. State your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Colonel Rodman Smith, Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Director of Enforcement. Mr. Chair, members, this is an extreme and punitive bill that would put conservation officers and the public in harm's way and holding us to a different standard over all other law enforcement in the state. We take our duties and adherence to the Constitution very seriously. This bill seeks to strip conservation officers of all authority to conduct search and seizures without a warrant or a court order. To be clear, conservation officers follow all state and federal laws, including search and seizure laws, just like every other peace officer in the state. The same Minnesota and U.S. constitutions guide the actions of all of law enforcement officers in the states. Conservation officers are subject to the same high standards and penalties as every other peace officer if they violate someone's constitutional rights. This includes 1983 civil rights charges, criminal charges by either county attorneys or attorney general's offices, civil suits, Minnesota post-board penalties, and of course, internal employment consequences. Even though COs are licensed peace officers under Minnesota law, they would no longer have the same authority as all the other peace officers in the state when it comes to search and seizure. This is creating a double standard that would critically inhibit our ability to hold criminals accountable for violation of our laws. What this bill would actually do is not allow us or prohibit us from warrantless searches and seizures based on probable cause, warrantless searches and seizure upon arrest or during the course of a criminal investigation. It would prohibit us from a search of a suspect incident to an arrest and any of these other exemptions to warrants. There's a long-standing and existing constitutional protections and case law in place for warrantless search and seizures by peace officers and constitutionally approved exceptions for warrants, which is why this bill is unnecessary and would create confusion when other law enforcement partners, the public, and it is determined by a court order or by a law order, Conservation officers assist federal, state, county, and tribal and local police departments thousands of times a year. Particularly in greater Minnesota, we can often be the closest peace officer to a call of violence, a person in distress, a motor vehicle accident with injuries, or calls of an emergency assist from other partnering agencies. This punitive bill would make assisting those partnering agencies much more difficult and put the public at risk while creating significant confusion as to which standard should be followed when agencies are working together. This bill would increase the workload of those agencies as they would be called on for assistance to seize evidence and deal with calls that conservation officers would have been able to handle, and would be very inefficient use of law enforcement resources at a time when we're all strapped for personnel. The courts would also have greatly increased work, requiring them to issue warrants and orders for everyday actions when the existing constitutional protections and case laws that are in place for search and seizure and those same constitutionally approved exceptions for warrants that would otherwise be used, which are all used by other law enforcement agencies in the state. The partnering law enforcement agencies we work with every day in the communities across the state join in opposition to this bill. As you can see in one of the letters in the opposition that's Senator Green just referred to, this bill would unravel the fabric and unnecessary partnerships that exist between law enforcement agencies in Minnesota. We provide significant and ongoing training in adhering to proper search and seizure laws as a law enforcement organization. Creating a different standard for our professional peace officer empowers criminals and creates a significant hurdle for my officers to do their job. Under this committee's jurisdiction, this bill will jeopardize game and fish, recreational, and environmental legislation and priorities this body works on every day. Most of us agree preserving our outdoor heritage is of the utmost importance. This bill does the exact opposite. It's anti-law enforcement, anti-outdoors. The bill singles out and handcuffs the officers who have protected our people and natural resources for more than a century. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colonel Smith. Any question from members? Senator Andrew Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for Colonel Smith. So we do have an ice house, a fish house, on Lake Mille Lacs, and we have had DNR come check on, what kind of fish we have, et cetera. So how would this bill impact your ability to see, what kind of fish we have, not just in our fish house, but on our boat? Does it make any changes to that? How would you be able to tell if people have the right number of fish? And I'm sorry, I know there's rules around that. I just do what my husband tells me, but we don't break the laws. But would this have any impact on checking stuff like that?
Colonel Smith.
Mr. Chair, Senator, so we in 2001, there was a court case where we needed to knock and get permission, and so we've been training and doing that since. And so we would continue to do that. So this bill would not make that change. We'd still have to knock and get permission to come in, okay? What this bill does is it would not allow for us to do any search or seizure pursuant to an arrest, pursuant to an investigation, or anything like that. So we'd have to get a court order. So for example, if we arrested somebody for a weapons violation or something like that, and we put handcuffs on them, we couldn't do a pat search. We'd have to get a court order in order to make sure that that person didn't have anything else on them before we put them in, take them into custody even further. So this bill does a lot. It does not level a playing field. It makes the playing field very unlevel for conservation officers. And it's pretty clear in Section 1 that it only pertains to conservation officers. And then the rest of the bill, if you look at Sections 2 through 8, I'll give you an example. So let's see, Section 3, line 2.20 says a law enforcement officer shall seize any snowmobile. But if you look at the new language that's added, a conservation officer would have to go get a court order for it because it refers to only conservation officers in Section 1. But a deputy, a trooper, a local PD, a tribal officer, they could do it without having to get a court order. So this does not level the playing field whatsoever. It makes the playing field unlevel.
Mr. Chair, could I, just in the bill, and I shouldn't have to read the bill, but And starting at 1.10, it says, notwithstanding any other provision in the law, an officer may not conduct a search and seizure except, and then it goes into the provisions where they can. And this, as I understand it, should be following the exact same procedure that law enforcement has. Colonel Smith has testified that this would prevent them from making a search of someone's property without a warrant. Yes, it would. That's the point. And if you, in the Constitution, it's short. The right of the people shall be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, support of an oath of affirmation, and it goes a few more other sentences. We have these things in place to protect the freedom of the people and to protect us so that we are secure in our homes and in our places. That's what they're for. The bill does not, it's not an overreach. And by his own testimony, he's saying what this bill is going to do is prevent us from conducting searches and seizures that this says we can't do.
We have two members online that want to speak and also ask questions. Senator Wiesenberg, are you on?
I'm here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Senator Wiesenberg, can you turn on your camera? Our rule said you have to. We
yes.
have to have audio, both audio and visual. Should we come back to you?
Nope. Can you see me? I'm here.
Yes. Okay.
Can you see me?
Yes. You may proceed.
Okay. So I have a lot to say. The public is not going to be put in harm's way by us having to follow the Fourth Amendment. As Senator Green said, I've showed this to sheriffs and police officers that I know, and reading through the bill would just make the conservation officers also have to get a warrant in the time they might need to get one. I would urge people in our committee and everybody to look up the Chevron deference case that was overturned last year. It's been for 40 years, the government's been allowing three-letter agencies such as the DNR, MPCA, or EPA to make rules and also interpret them. So they can say anything and then they can interpret it any way they want. This is exactly what the DNR did last year with the fencing bill for the deer farms. They said, this is what we want. And they made us, well, I didn't vote for it, but they made you vote for it and put it into law. And now they're interpreting it the way they want it to be. They do not have the right to come on anybody's property without a warrant to look at a fence. And the DNR decided that. So they're currently violating federal law by doing that, and they have to stop doing that immediately. It's very frustrating to hear a law enforcement person say that this is going to hurt them or hurt whatever. The DNR is attacking deer farmers right now, and it's all political, and we're not using science. And that's very frustrating. We've been trying to work together. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago. Said, can we get together? Can we talk? Rather than just putting someone out of business for no reason for politics. Apparently they don't want to do that. There's multiple other states now that are working with their deer farms in their states. We can breed CWD out of deer farms, just like I testified in ag, and I would highly recommend that we hear my deer farm bills in environment, because this is a thing that needs to happen. It's scientific proof, like 100% probability. We can breed CWD out of these deer farms, but the DNR is hell-bent on putting these people out of business for no other reason than politics, and somebody made somebody mad 20 years ago. I have no idea.
Senator Wiesenberg, can we stay on the subject?
I am on the subject. This is talking about illegal search and seizure, and this is exactly what they're doing. And I need to talk about this because this is why they're doing it. So I'm in this committee. I get to talk on this subject. So in the law that they've made, when they are going on to properties illegally, violating the Fourth Amendment, the law says if a farmer isn't following their fence law, they can kill their animals. Would you imagine if a sheriff went onto someone's dairy farm and some cows got out and they said, oh, your fence is down, we're going to kill all your cows? That's what our state law says. Deer in Minnesota are considered livestock, but they're not treated that way, and that's violating federal law. Right now, the deer farmers they're even at higher standards than what the USDA recommends. And what the DNR is doing is using their authoritarian principles to try to put them out of business by not following our Constitution. We took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and it really frustrates me that these people think they don't have to follow it. Now, if someone's doing something bad, if someone has drugs or someone's shooting people or someone has 10 deer and they saw them do it, yeah, they're going to go in there, they're not going to get a warrant. But we're going and we're ruining people's livelihoods just to put them out of business. One of the deer farmers in my district had a conservation officer show up at their house, didn't even look at the fence, and gave them a failing grade. They didn't even look at the fence. Now, I hope that comes up in the lawsuit because they should get sued for that as well. This is utterly ridiculous. Another thing I've been talking to these people about with these illegal searches and seizures that the DNR is doing, I've got deer farmers in my district who are veterans, and they are literally going through PTSD right now. The DNR is making these people worry and like have to go seek counseling. So the DNR is not only going to put these people out of business, they're going to make them sell their homes and their land. Now is the DNR also going to pay for counseling for these people that fought in wars for us and have PTSD, and they're hurting these people all because of some stupid political game? That's why this is important. They're violating people's rights. They're violating the Constitution. It has to stop. They need to be held to the same standards as all of their law enforcement, and that's all we're asking. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right. We have also Senator McCune. If you can turn on your camera and audio as well.
Hello, Mr. Chair and everyone. Can you see me and hear me okay?
We can hear you, but we haven't seen you yet.
Oh, I have my camera on. I can see myself.
Can technician here in the community room work on that? Senator McCune, go ahead with your testimony.
Okay. So I'm your resident criminal defense attorney here. I just wanted to weigh in on a couple of these assertions. I have to say, just as a matter of principle, I love seeing this new civil libertarian zest from my 5 colleagues who are authoring this bill. I'd love to work with you on some of these constitutional issues as we go forward. I've seen a lot of them play out in our courts. But what I see in this bill is not that you're trying to have the DNR be treated the same as other law enforcement officials, but you're trying to make it so that the DNR has less exceptions to the warrant requirement. And that's different. Basically, I think it's just like a matter of right and wrong interpretation of what the bill would do. So for my read of this bill and from my understanding of the law, and I've gone practicing law for many years and represented people in court many years facing constitutional and dealing with a lot of constitutional issues, this is really like an ask for special treatment for people that are dealing with the DNR law enforcement. It seems to me that the DNR law enforcement have to abide by exactly the same laws that other law enforcement officers in our state have to abide by. If they violate one of those laws, just like any other law enforcement officer, there can be complaints brought against them, lawsuits brought against them. There are remedies to try to curb bad behavior and punish bad behavior on the part of law enforcement officers. So I find myself in a really weird position here, but I oppose this bill very strongly because I feel like it really, I would love to invite you 5 to join me in our courts one day and see how it is for the people who are accused of crimes and how they have to deal with issues of search and seizure of their person and of their property. This would set up a special treatment that would not be fair at all. So I'd love to have more discussion on it, like I said, but there's no way I would support this double standard. Thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Green.
My testifier is a former law enforcement officer, and he did have a clarification on something that Colonel Rodman said, and I would like him to testify on that, and then I would like to close this out if I could, and maybe get our staff ready to answer the question of, because when I wrote this bill, I specifically said that I didn't write it, but I put the language out. I wanted the conservation officers to be under the same jurisdiction as the police officers. And I think that's what this bill does. It does not give anybody special treatment. What it does is it takes away the special treatment that they've been enjoying for some time. But if it would be all right if my testifier would answer on some of the other stuff.
Okay. So thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Steve Porter, when I heard the colonel for the DNR testify, he made several statements that were not true. I worked in law enforcement for 30 years. I've executed many search warrants. I was always subject to the Fourth Amendment. But when I heard him say that if we put somebody in handcuffs, we'd have to get a search warrant before we patted them down, that is 100% false. Officers always get to pat down a suspect. So his knowledge on criminal law is seriously lacking, and what we have here is a bill that would improve the image of the DNR. It would improve their image because right now people are fed up because they're simply not following the Fourth Amendment. They're violating people's rights. They've lost total faith and total credibility of people all across northern Minnesota. And all Steve Green's trying to do is salvage the image of the once honorable Minnesota DNR by getting them to follow the Fourth Amendment and follow the letter and mandate that was issued by Colonel back in 2001. He's just trying to get them to follow that because right now they're not behaving and their image is tarnished. He's trying to restore the glory of the badge that was once worn by the DNR. That's not happening. Their image is shattered. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't
want to go tit for tat either, Senator,
Colonel Smith.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead. I'll leave you
point,
because
then I'll be done. And
I understand.
Go ahead. I don't want to go tit for tat either.
Smith.
So I thank you. This bill would make us have to get a warrant if we wanted to pat search somebody. I didn't say with that current practice we have to get a warrant, but the language in this bill, Section 1, would make us get a warrant. And so if this isn't punitive against conservation officers, then you should possibly offer an amendment on line 1.10 instead of conservation officer, say a peace officer. And then it wouldn't be punitive to conservation officers.
Mr. Chair, I think the researchers are I thought you were raising your hand.
No.
Okay. Well, if they don't have anything to say, then I would I think the bill is clear. I don't believe that it's saying what Colonel Rodman says it is. If there is, we could clarify it more, but this is what I asked for. I asked for just, all I wanted was for them to obey the same laws. That is the intent of this bill, to obey the same laws that our regular officers have to do in the protection of the people of Minnesota.
Senator Green, just a question. Would you accept the amendment to change it to a peace officer?
I would not accept that right now because I think the peace officers already have to do this. And if there's clarification that says that the conservation officers have to abide by the same laws as the peace officers, and it doesn't say that, then I'll work on that. But right now you're asking me to do something that I'm not qualified to do right now. So if Mr. Stanley, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Stanley.
Mr. Chair, members, I'm not sure that my remarks are going to please anybody, but I just want to try to sort of draw all this together if I can. Senator Green says that he is trying to make conservation officers subject to the same requirements that other law enforcement officers are subject to. And I think if you look at sections 2 through 8, he is doing that in the sense that he is making all of these conservation officer specific provisions that govern search and seizure. He's sort of saying that they only apply when you can do a search and seizure under the new language being created in section 1. And in that sense, he is making, with this bill, he is sort of getting rid of provisions that are in law now that deal with search and seizure by conservation officers in specific conservation officer-specific ways. It's also correct, I think, that courts have created exceptions to the warrant requirement that are not in the text of the Fourth Amendment, but that are still allow law enforcement officers to, do certain searches and seizures without a court order. And in that sense, by making this language on lines 10 through 11 only applicable to conservation officers, it's also true that those court-created exceptions would no longer be available only to conservation officers. And so I think part of what, I think what everyone's saying here, they're each speaking correctly about certain portions of the effect that this bill would have. Now, I don't know if that helps or hurts, but I just wanted to get that out there.
One thing for sure is we're at 5:15 now. We pass out time by 15 minutes. And so, Senator Green, do you
Mr.
want
Chair,
to move this?
would it be appropriate for me to ask to lay this bill on the table until I can get with staff and clarify these issues so that the intent of this bill is what I say it is, and we can move forward on that?
That sounds good. Yeah. So this bill, Senate File 956, is laid over on tape. It's laid over for the.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for staying with us through this committee. Now meeting is adjourned till next time.